Welcome to the Jack Mountain Bushcraft Podcast, episode 55.
Welcome to the Jack Mountain Bushcraft Podcast with your host, Jack Mountain Bushcraft School founder and master main guide, Tim Smith.
I'm your host, Tim Smith. I'm a registered master main guide, and in 1999 I founded the Jack Mountain Bushcraft School. We help people become more skilled, more knowledgeable, more experienced, and more confident outdoors by using traditional skills, a few simple tools, and field-based experience. Whether you're looking to go from city slicker to competent outdoor professional, want to experience a remote expedition, or just want to learn a few new outdoor skills, we've got you covered. You can check out the show notes to this and all of our podcasts at blog.jackmtn.com. When you're there, click on the podcast button. And if you enjoy the show, please leave us a review on iTunes. Lastly, the best way to keep up with our programs and trips is to join our email newsletter, and you can do that at jmbnews.com. Welcome back to the Jack Mountain Bushcraft Podcast. We are sitting in my kitchen today, and I am joined by the one, the only working class woodsman, also known as Ed Butler, with how many alias were you just telling me you had on the dark web?
It's up to 7 now. The latest one is WCW, actually stands for White Collar Woodsman.
Nice.
People that seem to think I have money or something.
I like it.
I just got that the other day, so there's 7 now.
I'm picturing you like hip waders and a tuxedo.
Yeah, pretty much. Somebody hit me with that the other day, and I'm like, I don't know where you're coming from. I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't stand for that.
Alter ego, though. Next Halloween's already taken care of.
Right, exactly. White Collar Woodsman. I just got to figure out what that is. So, anyway.
Yeah, so we have, I know we recorded one, was it June?
No, actually, our last one was,
It was at your land up in Maine. I remember I was just off a course or the river or somewhere.
Had to have been after that because I was down in North Carolina in June. It was probably like August-ish.
Was it? Okay.
July or August. But it was a while ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was quite a while ago, actually. It was before hunting season, so let's say it was July.
Okay. Before you got super busy. I have seen Ed like twice in passing because you're working like 18-hour days as everybody's trying to get their places ready for the winter. And
Yeah, it's been an exceptionally busy year in the heating business, trying to tie up loose ends. Of course, every year, and I'm sure you deal with it's growing pains. You know, every year you get a little bigger and you get new problems and you're trying to take care of it.
Why were you looking at my waistline when you said that?
I'm sorry. But every year you kind of develop new problems and you're still trying to deal with the old problems, and not that they're problems, but they're things you got to deal with. So it seems like every year gets busier and busier and busier.
Yeah.
And this year has been exceptional. It was pretty much from September 1st right up until probably the last week of October. I worked 7 days a week doing installs and repairs and stuff like that, and then took a little spell, went down to North Carolina, came back and got right back into it, and it's just been out straight.
Huh.
It's getting tough, but we're getting through it. It's typical. It's just New England.
Yeah. It's just been a busy, and I wonder about that too, if it's me that thinks it gets busier every year, or if there's actually more stuff to do every year.
I think I'm just slowing down.
Yeah, or if my tolerance for being busy decreases every year.
Well, I know my tolerance decreases, because every year I get more and more ornery.
Right.
Or what do we say, disgruntled?
Yeah.
Which is the opposite of gruntle.
Opposite of gruntled.
Opposite of gruntled.
Disgruntled is the opposite of gruntled.
I used to be gruntle.
Yeah.
Yeah, now I'm very dis.
I love words like that like we only use disgruntled, right? No one ever uses gruntled anymore, probably since 1800.
No.
But yeah, when you take away like the prefix or the suffix, it changes it to the opposite. I always like that.
That's where I get lost.
Yeah.
I didn't do good in that class.
Right. Like the I'd met a guy who was talking about refurbishing old axes, and I was like, I just like to furbish them. I don't want to refurbish anything. Like, give me something to furbish.
Yeah, furbish. I got to start using that. I got to furbish it.
Exactly. So hunting season, did you get out at all?
Well, no, yes, I did. We had the Maine bear season, which was great. Had a great time up there. Harvested a really nice bear, 342. But I'm convinced that bear was so magnificent that his spirit has cursed me from the time I pulled that trigger. I'm convinced because my head's done nothing but I've had it's just like it's been one thing after another. So every time I have a screw up or every time something goes wrong, it's like, yeah, he's still there. He's getting me. The night that we ate it, remember the night we ate his heart?
Yeah.
I actually had nightmares that I had trigonosis. I woke up. My wife heard me waking up screaming in the back of the van.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, not nice, but that's
that's I think he kind of handed my head. He's getting the last laugh, but I'm going to stick it out. And when he's done with me, maybe I'll get back to hunting. But no, New Hampshire bear season was unsuccessful.
And for the Maine season, you were up in the Ziskahas country.
Yeah, by by Bosebuck, up by what's the other Wilson Mills?
Yeah,
that area.
yeah.
Way up, and we were like 23 miles off the road. And up there, it's nice because it's nothing but boondocks. It's nothing but country. Those old logging roads.
Yeah, sure.
Paper company roads now. It's still great. There's still tons and tons of wildlife up there.
They manage that section of Maine differently than the northern section. Like they limit the number of people to come in. It's not like going into the North Maine woods where you can just pay the fee and get a pass.
Yeah, and I'm not 100% sure how that works. It was just how it was set up originally. Like there are the people that own property behind a specific. Now anyone can walk through there.
Right. It's just motorized vehicles.
Absolutely.
I think that's the same with the North Maine woods. Like there's nobody on the. Like on the Allagash, there are rangers who will check your paperwork. But if I hop in the boat on the Aroostook and pull up into the North Maine woods, there's nobody there.
Right.
There's not like there's a gate or anything.
Like for instance, you could get on a mountain bike and you could ride all those roads, do all the fly fishing. I mean, there's nothing private about it. You just can't drive through that one particular gate, which it's kind of cool because that's why it's the way it is.
Yeah.
It's not being infiltrated with. It's kind of a double-edged sword. I mean, it's like every time I go fishing on Lake Winnipesaukee, it's like. Geez, I wish I had a camp right over there, but that's right. There's a $17.8 million house there, so that's probably why I don't.
Yeah.
But I still get to fish in the lake.
Right, and that's the.
And that's just.
I mean, that was the big rallying cry when Plum Creek's trying to develop the Greenville Moosehead Lake region was don't turn it into another
Yeah.
Winnipesaukee.
Yeah.
Right. We all would love to have the lone house on the remote lake, the lone cabin, right? But there'll never be just one.
Well, that's the problem. It's just like how many. You can't make any more wilderness. I mean, it's just we're slowly in. Maybe you know the statistics, but I know my friend Rick does. But every time you put a house, the carbon, and every time you put a dwelling or a house, you lose 4 acres of wilderness.
I don't know,
something like that. And on the lake, you think about it. The people that want to, they come up here to listen to the loons and enjoy the wildlife,
listen to the jet skis.
And they destroy, by taking away all that habitat and, messing with the ecosystem, you end up you destroy what you came for there in the first place.
Right. I always like to think of it, when I was a kid, there was a little field, and we'd always see deer running across it. And then they, paved it, put up a bunch of subdivisions and called it the Deer Run subdivision, right? So we name it after the thing that it used to be, but it's not that anymore.
Yeah, it's kind of like Manhattan. It's like, you never even know you were on the ocean.
Right.
That was some of their most beautiful ocean, but now they've just isolated why they went there in the first place. To me, maybe I'm missing something. But.
Yeah, if you read the early settlers to the New York City area, right?
Yeah.
This massive river and estuary, you could feed
Oysters.
yourself probably an hour a week of setting a net. There were so many fish and there's just so much stuff. And we've paved the entire thing.
Yep.
And now it's just a big, ecological black spot on the planet.
And if you look at the aerial view of that, like a satellite photo of New York, it's amazing. You still get that Central Park area, but you can see where it must have been a beautiful wildlife area. Who's
the guy? I think McLean, A.J. McLean, the old fishing writer, Field and Stream years ago.
Oh yeah,
somebody gave me a book of his years ago, and there was a great little essay story about some guy. It's in 1600 or something. Who's on Manhattan, and it was just there was a tiny little village and the rest of it was just woods.
Yeah.
But it's just a great story, and they just talked about, how thick the fish were. And
yeah, it was just wild, the salmon. I mean, it was just wild country. It must have been, but we're slowly doing that to the rest. Every year we just encroach a little more and a little more.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
There's nowhere left to go.
And speaking of deer, before I forget it, on the walk down here, you had 2 deer this morning cross your driveway.
Huh.
Yep, from this morning.
I've been meaning to put in a toll booth there.
Yeah,
because I can't let those guys get by for free.
Yeah, it's look like a couple of small does, but so we're lucky around here. The wildlife is still pretty abundant, but Like you say, every year, like now there's this, I hate to say a boom, but there's a lot of new construction going on.
Yeah.
And like one of the places we used to hunt down off of Cotton Valley is now, I think there's 30, I don't know how many houses are in there, but you couldn't even think about hunting down there. And it used to be really good. So, but like you say, up in Maine, we still go up there, and it seems like you might as well be in Alaska. But I mean, at what point will that be gone?
Right.
And at some point,
who knows? The people that own the property rights want to change all the rules so that they can develop.
Yeah.
That's an ongoing legal struggle for the state. Some of the landowners bought this timber country for pennies on the acre, and now they want to turn around and develop it so they can maximize their investment. And capitalism, you can't blame them for wanting to do that, but it will totally change the face of the region.
Well, here's where I get a little confused, especially like we were just talking about the area up in Wilson Mills, Bozebuck area. Because all that land used to be owned by the paper companies,
right?
And I think it would take them 20 years to actually get their money back on a piece of land.
Well, I've talked to a guy who works for one of the big companies, and they said back in the day, the foresters they'd get the return on the land, I think 80 years.
Oh, God.
Then they cut it down to 40. But now, since banks own it, they want to do it every 10.
See, that's the thing.
So it's like, but that's not, it's like economics versus ecology. That's not how the forest grows.
It's not going to work that way, especially when you leave that kind of slash behind.
Right.
And, you've taken out all the old growth. All the watersheds are gone for the most part. But, so that's what's concerning is like if you've got these, what used to be owned by the old paper companies, I want to call them good old boys for the lack of a better term.
Great Northern.
Yeah. Those companies, caused a lot of problems, rerouting, dynamiting rivers and all that stuff. But whatever, that's another issue. But the point is now, they were a lot more patient. They would wait for their money. But these investment companies that own the land now, what's going to happen when they're not seeing their money after 10 years? They're going to want to get their money back on that land. So what's going to happen with the land? Yeah,
they want to change the zoning and sell it as billionaires' recreational paradise.
Yeah.
They want to turn it into Montana.
Exactly.
So if movie stars buy it and then put up no trespassing signs and barbed wire.
And, you think there might be a chairlift on Katahdin at some point? Is that what you're saying?
Gondola. They'll turn Katahdin into Washington.
But you think about it, you can't stop. And what concerns, what I think about, maybe I'm overthinking it, but when a big corporation like that, who has a lot of influence, let's say politically, gets certain people elected into certain offices, that's how those things get changed. You know, like you get to a certain point where you've been protecting this certain part for years and years and years, and all of a sudden, we need this, I'll give you this, and then that's how that stuff gets just pushed around and lost.
Right. They just buy the politicians are the low-hanging fruit, and they just get bought, essentially. It's happened in northern Maine. The Irving brothers of Irving oil fame want to do a mountaintop removal gold mine like 30 miles from Masardis.
Pickett Mountain.
In the North Maine woods.
Is that the Pickett Mountain?
Nope, that's the other one.
Okay. Oh, okay, so there's two, yeah.
I think, is it Bald Mountain? I can't remember. But it's right at the headwaters of the Fish River, so there's some pushback against it. One of the last native brook trout strongholds in the contiguous United States, and they want to... And it's always the same thing with the mining operations, right? They always promise you that it's going to bring jobs, which it never does. Well, and it's so mechanized. And then they always promise that, nothing, all the tailings and all will be taken care of, and they never are.
No, and it's funny how, because the Pickett Mountain purchase is one I was talking about. That's the one that's a little closer to our property.
Right.
They were talking about how, like, there's certain regulations that don't, like, exploratory mining, there aren't as many regulations for that.
Right.
As like if they were going to go in and mine. So you wonder what they're doing now. But, they spent millions of dollars on that property. They're going to go in and they're going to make their money somehow.
Right.
And like every time something like that happens, like you say, it's one more piece of wilderness that's gone. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. You can hold it off. You can fight it, I suppose. But eventually, I don't want to sound grim or like doomsday, but eventually it's going to be gone.
Yeah.
So it's important that, we do everything you can to prevent that, but I don't know. I don't have the answer.
I don't have the answer either. I got a lot of questions though.
Yeah.
Like where is the beef? Who let the dogs out?
Where are they growing? Yeah, that's another story. It is amazing how when you look back and you read like the cattle industry, and I don't want to offend anyone that's in the cattle industry, but it's like, that's had a big impact on how we live.
Yeah.
Overall.
For sure.
You think about it.
And especially being in like a state with a history of forestry and not a history of grazing.
Right.
You think about, I've lived in Texas. I went to graduate school in Texas, and in Texas, because it's a history of grazing, like you can't walk on someone else's land. If you wanted to go hunt or you wanted to go explore the country, you better be on public land, and there isn't much of it. Because if someone was out, if you have cows out there and someone's just walking along or riding along, they're probably going to, the idea is they would steal your cows.
Yeah.
So the beauty of this part of the world where it's forestry, like it would take a pretty big mechanized industry to steal big trees.
Yeah.
So no one cared, and they just said, go ahead and walk across it. Just don't cut anything standing.
Well, it's funny. You're right, though. That is how all that, because up in New England, we can pretty much go anywhere.
Right.
I mean, it would, again, more and more property gets posted and stuff, but still, compared to the rest of the country, we're pretty free range.
Yeah, for sure. And the further north you go, the more free range you can be.
Yes. Yep.
As everybody moves, everybody wants their house, in southern Maine or in the Lakes region in New Hampshire. People move up here from Boston or New York metro areas and then post it. So then, so it's almost, we're almost relegated to places that aren't as popular because if people don't envision their, the LL Bean cover sort of cabin in the woods, if it's just a rural area, then they don't want to be there. Then we still have free access to it.
Yeah, I wonder how many of those little rustic cabins are left out there.
It's funny, you and me both spending 50 years in this region.
Yeah.
As a kid, I remember there weren't massive houses on the lakes. And now it's, some old camp, some old, like, uninsulated shack, basically. I mean, some of them were pretty nice.
They were 3-season homes, for sure.
But they, now they're being bought up and leveled. So you buy a lakefront cabin, totally demolish the cabin, build a 6,000 square foot third home there. Yeah. And that's, it is what it is.
Yeah, it's very typical for these what we call 9-bathroom homes to go up, and I don't know how they squeeze them in.
Yeah,
and they have to make them taller to get the it's like, well, it's got to be 6,000 feet, so you got to make them 3 stories.
But nobody lives in them.
No,
it's like a third home, fourth home, and it's always interesting to me about how certain parts of the country people just make so much money compared to other parts of the country. Like you think about. I talk to people who work in, say, New York City or something, and the cost of living is so high. Someone's a banker in New York City. Like, they make so much money that if they're able to, get a place somewhere else, it's the numbers are staggering.
And it's relative because it's funny. I just had a conversation with a friend of mine who there was a guy somewhere down in Florida, paid like $360,000 for a new boat. $360,000.
That's it?
Yeah.
Is it a dinghy or something?
No, it's a big dinghy. Got like 2 350s on it or something. And I'm thinking, 360, man. 360. It's like I couldn't imagine. And that's a boat. And he's already got. So I get to my point is it's like what I mean. It's what people think is a lot of money to some. It just isn't. To
right.
Some. It's just crazy. It's hard to get. I can't get my head around it half the time, but.
And I think, we live in a nice part of the country, but if you go to somewhere, Alabama or places lower socioeconomic, they would think that we're millionaires for the...
Well, yeah. I mean, I got a buddy out in Illinois who thinks he's the one that called me the white collar woodsman because I drive around in a new service cargo van. It's like, yeah, you're a white collar woodsman. I'm like, man, I don't know. Not a lot of white collar guys driving cargo vans,
right? That
I know of.
Anyway. I have my street cred because I have one of my taillights on my pickup truck fell off 2 years ago, and I had some orange duct tape in the truck that day, and so I just taped it back on, and the tape's still there. It's like going on two plus years, and I haven't.
You're right. I noticed that actually.
But I haven't, I never think about it until I'm looking at the truck, and I just have to buy a new. What happened was I was, driving woods roads. I think there's 3 holes to screw it in, and they all cracked and broke. Yeah. So but it still works. So I guess if it's not broken, I'm not going to fix it.
That's a good policy, I think. But anyway, that's I don't know. So back to the whole the hunting. I guess we got to come full circle at some point. But so I guess without any land left, we'd have a hard time going hunting. But as far as the hunting season goes, I struggled through deer season unsuccessfully. Had 2 chances at a really nice 10-point buck. Blew both those opportunities. Not ready, just too busy, didn't have time, not thinking, and at the end of the day, I didn't make it happen. So it's been a struggle. But overall, a lot of the guys around the area have done really well. Been some nice bucks harvested.
Nice.
Yeah. There's some concern about the natural food that's on the ground, though, because there's not an acorn or a beech nut to be found. Mm-hmm. So the deer were in different food patterns. It's like they were into the green grass. I mean, they're already eating the arborvitaes, which you don't see them doing that until like March, usually.
Yeah.
So
it was a cold early fall.
Yeah, and the ground, we had the ground cover came. I mean, we've had snow on the ground for a month.
Yeah.
Which is I can't remember. Well, first of all, it was the coldest Thanksgiving I can ever remember.
Yeah.
It was like 12 below with the wind.
Yeah.
I had a customer with a frozen pipe. That never happens. But the first hunting season I can remember where we had pretty much snow the whole season, which was very beneficial to in a lot of ways. First off, it makes for no lost hunters. They can. You don't have a lot of lost hunters when there's snow on the ground because they follow their tracks back out. But it also, if you wound a deer, it's easy to follow the blood trail, and also you can figure out, if it snowed last night, like this morning, like it snowed last night, so I know those deer crossed your driveway this morning.
Right, it lets you know when the animals were moving if you keep track of the weather.
So I mean, I was persistent, and I was in this new area, and the snow actually helped me pin down their patterns as to where they're going. I was out yesterday. Went squirrel hunting this weekend with Randy Rodko there. Got a couple squirrels, and I went out again yesterday to try to get a rabbit, but I ended up going further down the river on the edge, and I found just an abundance of deer trails. Just amazing. But I wouldn't know it if there wasn't snow on the ground necessarily. Right. And I know all that activity is probably within the last week. Actually, a great part of that activity was probably what day was it? Saturday, because it warmed up to like 40, 42.
Right. Yep.
And all the snow got soft, so that whatever fresh tracks had to have been made after the snow was soft. Mm-hmm. So the snow is very beneficial to kind of keep track of where the animals are. But anyway, that's all part of it.
Yeah. So leading into winter, I think I've seen like 3 guys out ice fishing already.
A lot of guys ice fishing. Yeah.
I'm thinking about, we've got, obviously I like the old non-mechanized stuff for winter, so I will often chip holes with an ice chisel, and I've got a hand auger. A spud.
Yes. With a spud, yeah. Which is a chisel.
Yeah. But I'm just thinking about different augers, as the ice gets deeper, and we're doing a trip up to northern Quebec this year, and we always will chip the holes up there to set a net under the ice with a spud, and sometimes the ice is like 4 feet deep, or 4 feet thick. Yeah. So, what do you use for an auger when you go out?
Well, I've got a Jiffy gas-powered auger, which I've got a love-hate relationship with it. Mine's pretty dependable, and nothing against Jiffy. But the problem with anything gas now, it's like if you leave gas for 6 months or a year, it destroys
because of the ethanol?
Yeah, because of the ethanol. And I put in the starter on. But so you got to remember to drain it out and this and that. Now, I'm pretty lucky, but my friend Al has a propane-fired Jiffy, and it has less power, but it's flawless.
Huh.
So, you sacrifice a little power, but it'll always start, and it's smooth. But it's you're never going to get the power out of it that you will a gas one. Mm-hmm. Or maybe the new ones. Maybe I shouldn't say that. But also too, a lot of guys, and my buddy Mike has got one. Is they're using the big heavy duty cordless drills.
Right. Yeah, I've seen those.
They work slick.
Huh.
Amazing.
And it's nice because you don't have to go buy another motor.
That's
right?
the thing. Yeah. I mean, like I'm a tradesman. I got 3 cordless drills. And I've got 10 of those 18-volt batteries. So I mean, that's a good. That's a good alternative. The hand augers work pretty good too. They make some good hand augers.
Yeah,
and those are light.
Yep.
I'm kind of like you. It's like the less moving parts, the better.
Because I just know everything's going to break.
Okay,
and it'll always break right when I don't want it to.
Trust me, you don't want to toboggan one of those Jiffy ice augers out on a lake. I mean, if you're on an expedition like what you do,
yeah,
it's not going to work. But you could get by with one of those little Mora there's a couple other ones. I think Eskimo makes them, but they burn right through.
Yep, yeah. We've got two of them actually.
Yeah, those work slick. That's a good way to do it. But the old days of chiseling through 4 feet of ice when we were kids, we were out there with an axe.
Yeah.
So you start out with like a 6-foot hole, and
it's
by
like
the time you get to
upside down pyramid.
Yeah, by the time exactly. By the time you're done, you can barely get a small white. You get like a hole about 3 inches around at the bottom.
Yeah,
and you're soaking wet because you've been chopping through water and ice. So the day's over.
Yeah.
I mean, you're standing there. It's the funniest thing because nobody dressed right. You're all wearing cotton and you're getting soaked from chipping the hole.
Yeah.
So you stop. You start fishing. You stop moving. You freeze instantly.
I remember as a kid, you could always tell like something about the other kids' households, like when you go to school, because everybody had rubber boots that weren't insulated, and you'd wear your cotton socks inside of a plastic bread bag over your.
Perfect.
So you'd always be able to, they're a Wonder Bread family, and look at who's the kid with the 7-grain organic.
Oh, look who's eating JJ Nissen. Must be nice.
Exactly.
Oh yeah. Well, it was definitely it was kind of a, like you say, fashion statement. You could tell by the loaves of bread, whether that family had money or not.
Right, and it wasn't, you didn't have fancy socks. You had fancy bread bags.
Yeah. See, I use paper bags. So, anyway. Yeah, it never worked. But yeah, the old days of those green pack boots with cotton socks.
Green pack boots.
You were good for 15 minutes. And if the bus didn't come, you had frostbite.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Oh man, those things were brutal.
It was. I just remember being so cold as a kid, and these days, like if I go out, long winter trip, right? I'm warm the whole. Like I don't get cold anymore. I mean, if you stand still and it's really cold for too long, you'll get cold. But I just remember every day as a kid being so cold, and it's just with the right stuff and a little bit of know-how, those days are over.
Those packed boots, the felt line. Remember when they first come out? They call them snow machine boots, but they were just a felt line boot. Those things were like those were just God's gift to any kid.
Yes.
And now, I mean, there's hundreds of products out there, but anything with a good felt thermal insulated liner is the way to go, because you pull the liners out and dry them.
Exactly. That's for our winter expeditions. Like that's you have to be able to do that, because
if you can't, you're gonna lose your feet.
Everybody years ago would show up with like leather boots, and these are the boots I wore all winter, and then they're soaked, and then it takes them 10 days to dry out.
If you're going home at the end of the day, fine.
Yeah, exactly.
And hopefully you do.
Yeah.
But like when I used to ice climb, there were guys that would show up with, we call them, what do we call them? A few things, but they would hot dog these sport routes, cragging and stuff. But they would chinking glasses at 6 o'clock, in the restaurants.
Yeah.
But the guys who were out there mountaineering wouldn't be caught dead in those leather boots, because one night with those things, and you're done.
You're done.
Yeah, you got to be able to pull those liners out. Wear them. I've worn mine in my sleeping bag to dry them out, and you wake up. You basically, the boots themselves, the plastic boots, doesn't matter. You just bang the ice out of them.
Yeah.
But like in your case, you must have some kind of muckluck. I don't know what you guys are running for boots.
Yeah, I got 2 pairs. I got a rubber boot with a felt liner, and then a muckluck with a felt liner.
Yeah.
So it depends on the
concept.
If it's colder than about 5 or 10 degrees, I'll wear the muckluck, and if it's warmer, I'll wear the rubber. I'll often, because I'm lazy, will often just wear the rubber boots and just dry them out at night.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
The hot tent and everything.
Yeah, keep the moisture.
But definitely.
So here's a good question for you. So, guys are going out, recreating in the wintertime. What level of sort of skill or knowledge do you figure somebody needs to have in order to be safe? And is it the same if they're going out ice fishing versus going out snowmobiling? I know what I think on the subject, but I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on it.
Well, all of it.
Yeah.
You got to know everything.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, no one does, but it depends on the level. In other words, as soon as you say ice fishing or snow machining, the first thing I think of is going through the ice.
Right.
So, I don't know. Short of that, okay, say you're out on you're way out in the middle of nowhere on a snow machine and you break down. You got to have, you got to have the ability to build a fire, first off. And I don't think of all the people, how many people actually have fire making, when they go out snowmobiling or ice fishing, how many people actually have fire making ability with them? As much as a Bic lighter.
I think very few.
Like, what do you got on you right now? Our son, we just crashed our car. We just rolled our car over on the way to the airport, and we got to spend the night. How are you going to light a fire?
Yeah. Cigarette lighter in the car.
Right there. I won't leave home without this.
It's a good thing to have. And I think there's a lot of bad information, like on the web. I've seen, people will say, lighters won't work if it's cold. Like, yes, they will.
Well,
we've talked about this before, I think.
Butane. Yeah, they won't work. Well, butane boils at 32 degrees. So if it's 32 degrees or colder, it's just going to sit there like water. But if you put it in, warm it up with your hand, put it under your armpit, take it at whatever, it'll work. You just have to warm it up.
Right, and I've seen, and I don't know the science behind it, but I've seen guys like, hey, it's 40 below, and they're lighting a smoke with a
It's been in their
lighter.
pocket.
Yeah,
yeah. If you leave it outside, or leave it in your car, and you grab it, the lighter doesn't work, and you throw it down, you throw it on the seat or whatever, and all of a sudden after the car is warmed up, you pick it up. Oh, now it's working. Well, that's nice. Put it back in your pocket.
But it's one of those things that people who don't know any better and don't know why will keep repeating that, like, oh, geez, don't bring a lighter with you in the winter because you're going to freeze to death and die. Like,
well, ideally,
no,
yeah. I mean, if you're out, I mean, being I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I mean, you should have, if you're out any extended period of time in the woods in the winter, you should have three forms of making, three sources of making fire: waterproof matches, lighter, and whatever your go-to is, flint and steel, whatever. But whatever your hobby is, I should say.
Yeah.
But I mean, at least the minimal, a Bic lighter. They're 99 cents at 7-Eleven. And they work for. I mean, I carry the same one around for 2-3 years at a time. Well, I don't smoke.
I want to get a Bic lighter, but I can't afford the fancy Bic brand name. I get the cheap knockoff, the Scripto or something.
Yeah, it's funny. I just got one of those for a Christmas present.
Nice.
The Scripto. Yeah. The guy's like, I didn't know what to get you. It's like, thanks, man. He knows me. But the Bic lighter, the whole science behind the Bic lighter, we're talking about busting myths. Propane boils, and when I say boils, it boils at 44 below zero. So if it's 44 below zero or above, propane will work. It'll boil. You'll get gas out of it. If it's any colder than that, it's dormant. It won't work without heating it up. Butane is the same, only it's 32 degrees. So if it's below 32 degrees and that lighter's been outside, not in your pocket, it's not going to work. All you got to do is warm it up, and it will work wet. I've proved that. I mean, I've fallen through the ice and pulled my Bic lighter out, and the Bic lighter works. They'll work wet.
Nice.
So it's just a cheap, inexpensive. I mean, if you're gonna head out into the woods, just throw a lighter in your pocket. I mean, I don't leave the house without it, ever.
No, I think that's a great advice. That, again, people should always have a way to light a fire. And I've seen people. I don't want to kind of poke too much fun at people, but I've seen guys like, oh, here's my survival kit or my everyday carry, and I saw one guy on a video years ago, and it was like a 50-pound backpack full of stuff. Oh, yeah. And I'm like, there's no way this guy carries this thing everywhere. But then you think about what do you carry everywhere? And for me, if I'm going out, I'll always have matches or lighter. I'll always have a knife.
Yeah, I got a knife and a lighter and some form of flashlight. Yeah. And right now, I use my cell phone as a flashlight. But a knife and a lighter are two things I won't leave the house without. And that doesn't take much to carry around.
I'm partial to matches just because that's what I've always carried, but some way to light a fire. Matches and a lighter are pretty interchangeable.
And I'm not going to leave. We're not going to leave the house with a 8-inch blade on us. No, I mean, go into the. You're just not going to do that. And
nothing smaller than 18 inches.
Yeah, and we get back into the whole thing. It's like we can contrive anything. We can go make a video how to do this in a survival. But you're not going to have the reality is you're never going to have that stuff with you.
Right. And it's all, especially in the wintertime when it's really cold, it's all about efficiency and time.
And speed.
Speed, yeah. So like if I use this on courses a lot, this scenario, like if we're out walking and somebody busts through the ice, soaks their clothing, and it's 20 below with a big wind, that's not the time to prance around the forest looking for bow drill wood. That's the time to 55-gallon drum of diesel, light it,
Anything, any way, shape, or form, get a fire going.
Yeah, a big
short circuit, a battery, fire. Whatever you have to do. Yeah, because you got 15 minutes?
Maybe
not even that. Not at 20 below.
Yeah, especially with the cold, wet wind.
No, even with wool. I mean, and then we get into the clothing. I mean, what are you wearing out there? Are you wearing? Of course, everyone knows wool retains 80% of its insulation or something like that, and depending on the wool, old school wool is different than new school because now we have all the new blends and stuff. So I think it's lost some of its insulation, but you're still better off than a Carhartt jacket.
Right.
I mean, you get wet in a Carhartt jacket, you are not going to wear that thing dry.
No.
I mean, it's going to either freeze solid or it's going to that cotton is just going to suck the heat out of you.
Right.
and it's relentless.
I like to, I think Mother Nature's come up with the best thing, so I like to mimic what Mother Nature's done. So I'll rent a gorilla costume from the place in town, and I'll wear that out. And then you get all these Bigfoot sightings people are claiming.
Yeah, we just saw a squirrel climbing up a tree. I ate 2 of those last night.
Nice. We have some really fat squirrels right here.
Oh, dude. I'm actually doing a video on it, but these are the biggest squirrels I've seen, and they're loaded with fat.
Yeah.
These things are huge. I mean, I took pictures and put them on Instagram, and everybody's like, wow, I thought they were rabbits. I mean, for some reason, we got some rogue squirrels around here. I mean, they're getting big.
Yeah.
They're getting aggressive.
The squirrel apocalypse, it's coming.
I mean, I'm carrying my Bearcat now as a sidearm when I go out to the woodpile. Because I don't know, it's gonna come to a point where they're going to realize it's like, I can take him.
Yeah. They're almost that big.
I'm ready.
We had a red squirrel a few years ago. We had a winter camp. We were camped somewhere up near the field school in northern Maine. Camped somewhere for about 5 straight days. So we had, often in the winter, peanut butter and jelly is a great, easy lunch. It's easy to thaw. So we had those squeezable jellies. Yeah. But it was really cold out, so someone picked it up, squeezed it, and the plastic container broke. Right? So, and we had like little pieces of plastic in it, so we're like, I guess we're not going to try to salvage it. It was, 3/4 gone anyway, and there's all the plastic in it. So we just put it down, forgot about it. So this red squirrel gets into it, and then the thing, it's all hopped up on sugar, and it is like standing there defending the broken jelly jar. I'm not kidding. It was like standing there, like daring you to come at it, right? Like So that level of tenacity. If that thing was bigger, it would be the most frightening animal in the world.
Well, it's funny because that's what I told Randy. Because we had one that, I mean, it's a long story, but it didn't go down easy. And I told him, it's like pound for pound, man. These things are apex predators.
Oh God, yeah.
If they were 250 pounds, it's like forget it.
Yeah, just imagine them like running up and down skyscrapers in New York City.
They would be bad. But anyway, with those teeth and those claws, can you imagine?
And that attitude. The grays are more docile because they're not territorial, but the reds,
they're
vicious,
vicious little buggers. But yeah, so but being out in the winter time. So I would have, I think. What skill level should you have before you venture into the wilderness? As much as you possibly can.
What should you know how to do? I think fire.
Fire's number one.
Not just carry a lighter or matches, but know how to actually light a fire in back.
Well, exactly. I mean, and you can have all the fire starter you want, but if you don't, say fire starter. If you had a lighter or matches or whatever, if you have nothing, if you have no fuel, okay. And now where are we? Are we talking New Hampshire, which is typically wet?
Yeah, soaking wet.
Are we New Mexico? Are you in Colorado, where things tend to be drier? But you get up in the north woods of Maine, sometimes it's pretty hard to find tinder.
We had a year, I think it was like 2012. So we're getting ready to do a 2-week winter course, and it warms up to like 50 degrees, and we get an inch of rain.
Oh boy!
And then the cold front comes through, and it's like 25 below. So not only is everything soaked, but there's
it's sealed.
It's sealed. There's a 1/4 inch of ice on everything, and then when you get through the ice, everything is totally soaked. Yep. So I just remember like having a wood stove, building a big shelter, putting a wood stove in it, and like not being able to get warm because there was so much moisture in all of the wood that it just sucked up all the BTUs.
And that happens. Even like you can like birch bark will burn wet, but how much it doesn't last long.
Right, and I've actually seen it so wet and compromised that you couldn't light it with a match.
That's tough too. That happens. So it's a question of, I guess I get. What it really is. What it comes down to is situational awareness. If I said that right, situational awareness as to where are you going. What are we in northern Maine? And when you okay, what's out there for natural resources? If you get into a scenario like if you're going out on a snow machine trip, you should have snowshoes, a shovel, and probably extra gasoline. There's certain things that if you're talking, but if you're going out like on a day hike and a snowshoe trip and you're going out, let's say 4 or 5 miles, that's enough to get into some trouble.
Yeah, one of the awesome things about winter is also one of the more dangerous things is that because fewer people recreate in the winter. Like a 25-acre woodlot right next to a town, you get out in the middle of that in the wintertime, and it's like you're in the middle of the wilderness.
Well, yeah.
So and you twist your ankle there, you're not mobile. That might be it for you. Yeah. Or you could be flip side, you could be the middle of Labrador, the end of the road in northern Quebec and whatever. But yeah, so it makes those small areas of woods that much more remote because of the cold.
Well, it's interesting. That's why Mount Washington is one of the most dangerous places in the world, because you can drive up from Boston, park your car, and in 2 hours you can hike into a life or death situation.
Yeah, I always like to say that I think it was 1986 or 96. Before 96, remember there was that one movie where that one day
Into
where
Thin Air.
all those guys died on Everest in the one day.
Into Thin Air, yep.
Before that day, Washington was the deadliest mountain in the world.
Yep.
So now it's number 2, because you can leave your office, you can leave your apartment in Boston at 10 a.m., be at the base camp at noon, and be dead by 1.
Yeah.
That's pretty efficient.
That's a very efficient mountain. Yeah, that's a disposal system. But yeah, Into Thin Air, the Everest tragedy, that was May of 96.
Yeah, 96.
Yeah, 96. So we're talking 22 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't seem possible. Krakauer wrote a really good book about that.
Right, yeah.
Into Thin Air. But yeah, no, so I guess the best just preparedness. I mean, think about where you're going. Are you walking out on the ice? Like today, okay, good example. Looking out onto that ice looks safe.
Yeah. It's got a nice little layer of snow insulating it
all
down.
the way across. Well, you're sitting here, well, geez, that was open water yesterday. Now all of a sudden somebody shows up to the camp on, it's Monday, we're here for the week. It's like, oh, good, the ice is in. Let's fire up the sleds.
Yeah.
That's what happens. It looks, they've been ice fishing for 2 weeks. I've been on social media. There's 6 inches of ice, on Beach Pond.
Mm-hmm. Or in some tiny little cove.
Right. So, you get misinformed, you get a little cocky, here for the week. What could possibly happen? And you fire up the sled and then you're in 30 feet, you're at the bottom of 30 feet of water. And I mean, think about what you're doing and just be as prepared as possible. I don't have a snow machine anymore. I used to, but to me, it's just not my thing anymore. But a lot of people are into it.
Yeah.
You get out some of these machines, they'll run, you're running 80 miles an hour, and, in a couple of hours, you can be quite a ways away from help.
Yes. On the Allagash this summer, we were on Eagle Lake, and some folks came up who were fishing, an elderly couple, and they were talking about how their son came up from Millinocket in one day, rode all the way up to Churchill Dam, and back. So, 60 miles maybe on the trails.
Oh yeah, some of those trail networks are incredible.
But I mean, if you're 2 miles away and you don't have snowshoes and you break down, like that's going to be a hard day.
Well, they teach you. The guides will tell you. The main guides will tell you. It's like never go out on a snow machine without a shovel, snowshoes, extra gasoline, and a come along.
Right.
I mean, how many people have one of those things?
Yeah, exactly.
They've got a 18-pack of Natty Ice and
a cell phone.
Well, and a cell phone, and we're going to stop. We're going to grab a steak anyway at so and so's. We'll just pull into there and get something to eat. It's just kind of, unfortunately, there are enough people usually, but you can, there's usually if you get into trouble, someone will come along, but you can still get into a lot of trouble out, especially like up in the area we're talking about, up in around Bosebuck. There now this you've heard of the mountain sleds.
Yeah.
All right, those are the new phenomenon. I mean, but you need 2 feet of powder to run those things. So what guys are doing now is they're going off trail and whatever, but the timber companies or the forestry is having an issue because they're taking the tops of the little trees off with these mountain sleds because they're just running everywhere. They're coming off trail, which didn't used to be a problem, but now everybody is like off trail because they want to be in that powder and they can horse around, but they're actually ruining the trees. So that's becoming an issue.
Right, because I mean the rule is we're not, as guides, as recreators, we are not allowed to damage live trees.
No, at all.
At all.
No, period.
And that's part of the grand bargain of opening the land to keeping it open for recreation is follow these rules, and now those rules are being violated.
Yeah, and I guess it was always, there've been issues before, but now with this new phenomenon of these mountain sleds, because you go on YouTube or whatever and you see these guys out in Colorado and they're just running up, it's wild. I mean, they got those mountains will handle it. They've got 20 feet of snow. But, you get up in northern Maine, you want to do the same thing. But what you're actually doing is you're running up a hillside that was clear-cut 2 years ago. not clear cut, but mechanically thinned. But they've put new trees in.
Yeah.
Okay. So they've got little trees that are trying to come up, but you go over the top of them with those sleds, and you're destroying. So you're destroying someone's investment.
Right. I mean, it would be analogous to going out and, like, I don't know, riding your four-wheeler over all the baby cows in Texas.
It's kind of an analogy, yeah.
Yeah.
Or like you take a dirt bike and drive out through somebody's cornfield.
There you
and
go.
Spin it up. It's kind of the same thing. The thing is, people don't realize they're doing it.
Yeah.
Because they see all that powder and they say, who cares? We're up in northern Maine, blah, blah, blah. Well,
people want to have a good time. And I don't think, I honestly don't think that there are maybe more than a handful of people who would maliciously do it if they realized the impact they were having.
Oh, yeah. No, you're right. I think
I believe people are generally good.
Yeah. I mean, everybody gets out and here's the thing. As soon as you straddle an internal combustion engine, it changes who you are. We behave differently. A two-stroke makes it worse.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, that combination, you're out with your friends, it's like people just raise hell with them. And, I think, like you say, 9 out of 10 people, if you say, hey, we shouldn't be over there doing that because, we're destroying the trees and the paper companies are going to shut the trails down. It's like, oh, man, I'm sorry. There's a few people that would say, who cares? But I think it's minimal. But that is becoming an issue.
Yeah. I've actually read about that, the people are upset about it.
And the other thing was snowshoes, because a lot of people are into snowshoeing, and they'll spend $350 on a pair of snowshoes and think they're bulletproof. But those bindings still break.
Right.
So if you're going to go snowshoeing, I'm sure you have paracord or something. You got to be able to fix your bindings.
Correct.
Because if you're in, 2 miles out in the woods, you've tried to walk on one snowshoe.
Yeah.
It's difficult.
It's very difficult.
And
if you only have one, it's more like a raft.
Exactly. So if you're going on, if you're out recreating on snowshoes, which is awesome, I love to see people do that. But you gotta, even if you've got really expensive snowshoes, those can still break.
Yes.
And I've seen it happen many times. So that's something to think about. It all comes down to preparedness and skill level. Get as much skill and information as you possibly can. And if you're on the internet, take everything with a grain of salt. Because...
Or perhaps multiple grains of salt.
Perhaps a tablespoon of salt, yes. You know where that saying came from?
No.
Back in the Roman days, they used to, when you wanted to get rid of somebody, poisoning was a very common way to it's like, well, we need him taken out of power. Let's put something in his wine. And, sure enough, he died. What happened? I don't know. He drank his wine and got sick. Well, he was poisoned. And there was a belief by the Romans that if you took salt with poison, it would take the poison away and you could tough it out. So if you thought someone was going to poison you, you would take some salt just to ward off the poison.
And in the modern day, if you go to a bar, people will do the salt with the tequila because that stuff's poison.
In my case, yes. But that's where that came from.
Yeah.
From the old. So take it with a grain of salt, meaning it could be poison.
I love old sayings like that.
Yeah.
And there's so many of them that I use that I don't have any idea what they actually mean.
Mind your own beeswax?
Yeah. I don't know what they mean. I don't know where they came from. I don't know, shepherd analogies from the Bible. I've never been a shepherd. What would I, you need to
shepherd's pie.
Carry something about your flock or, again, we use these analogies and sort of bits of language that don't mean anything to us. We don't even understand, but they're just, the common usage, but we don't even know where they came from.
Yeah, I think there was a passage in Pulp Fiction about that, where blessed is he who shepherds the weak through the valley of darkness, for he is truly his brother's keeper and the finder of lost children.
Sam Jackson?
Talking about Samuel Jackson. You actually said Samuel Jackson, not Samuel Adams.
Yeah,
because that's what we usually call him. You remember Sam Adams? I was like, no, it's Samuel Jackson. But anyway, so that's off on a tangent. But
yeah, no, but I agree wholeheartedly that people should get out there and definitely with snowshoes learn how to make your bindings. If you're relying on a fancy binding without that relies on plastic catches and different friction ties, that's a bad thing to be relying on because I've seen those things break lots of times. So
and in cold weather especially.
Yes, the worse the conditions, when you really need them, that's when they're most likely to break. So if you ever want to come out with us, come on out and we'll show you a couple of different ways to make a binding out of a piece of rope. Yeah,
and actually, you got some good demonstration on that. You're talking about when you twist your foot into it?
Yeah.
That's slick as all get out. You don't have to you can actually put it on without even bending over.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty good way to go. And it's simple.
It's very simple.
Yep.
But like most things, the simpler the the simpler the outfit, the more care needs to be
that's
done
true,
in using it. So it's not designed to like clip in and then you can run up. I love that every time I see like a picture of somebody snowshoeing on like a magazine, they're always head to toe spandex. Their snowshoes are like one size bigger than their boot.
And one snowshoe's coming up with this powder just dropping off. It's like, where do these people go snowshoeing? We don't have conditions like that.
Yeah, and like I've seen people wear those little snowshoes on, try to be out in like the woods with them, where the drifts are 8 feet deep, and they just disappear.
Oh yeah,
they
and they're like
right
the snowshoe is 1 inch bigger than their boot.
Exactly. So
it's basically cleats.
It provides no flotation at all.
When I first, because I fought, the guy that taught me how to trap actually had a pair of old snowcrafts. Remember those made in Bangor? They made they actually made military snowshoes that were ash.
I don't remember
Snowcraft.
those.
Yeah. I still have a pair that my friend Rick got off my buddy Rick. But he had made a pair of bindings out of inner tubes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Slick as heck.
Yeah.
And then it took, because I grew up like we really liked the traditional ways, but when I get into mountaineering, traditional snowshoes don't work above tree line.
No. Or on like 45-degree pitches.
Correct. So you have to, when you're up in that environment, you have to have snowshoes with you that'll work. So I went out, I bought a pair of tubs with at the time they were called RCS bindings, which I don't know what that meant, but they were literally like crampons. You could almost ice climb in those things.
Huh.
And they had a metal hinge that to this day hasn't broken. But since that, I've seen multiple brands of those high-tech snowshoes come out with these plastic bindings, and 2 hours into the trip, a buckle breaks.
Right, and it's a Rube Goldberg device of infinite complexity with 80 moving parts.
Yeah, and then exactly, it's like, and then you forget about trying to get them off. They get these little plastic clips that go in these teeth, and they just fill up with ice, and they have issues. And like you say, 9 out of 10 times they're too small.
Yeah.
They're too small. Like you put a 50-pound pack on. We're not petite by any means, but say we're 260 pounds with a pack. You need a good sized snowshoe.
Yeah.
But in the old traditional, unfortunately, we just don't have the conditions anymore for the. We don't have powder on the ground for very long.
No.
And most of the time when we go out, those what I call technical snowshoes are actually better because you can walk on crust and stuff like that. But so they have their advantages, but even though you've spent $350 on your snowshoes, don't trust your life with them. You need to learn how to make bindings, or at least some way to get back.
Yeah, and I'm also a big fan in know how to make a pair of improvised snowshoes if you have a few feet of string
absolutely,
in your pocket.
Yeah.
Those little things. We had years ago, my son was just born, so it was 2005, I think. We had a TV show come here to New Hampshire, and we shot for several days, and it was in March, so the snow is super deep, and it was one of those years where it was waist deep snow in the woods. Mm-hmm. And the director wanted me and the star to walk through the woods, no snowshoes. And I'm like, are you serious? And I was just, what a disaster.
Oh,
but
man. Yeah.
We had to walk 30 yards maybe, and it took me 20 minutes because you're up to your waist every step.
You can't do it.
It's just brutal.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And the poles are nice too. The ski poles, mm-hmm. or so a lot of people like those. Those are nice especially if you've got a pack. It helps you stabilize a little bit.
But I guess my long-winded point is just that when the snow is deep, to try to get by without snowshoes,
forget it.
Don't even bother.
Which is, like I say, if you're going out, extended backcountry on a snow machine, you should have snowshoes with you.
Right,
something.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if the machine breaks, you got to walk. If you're on the trail, that's fine. But depending, like I say, you can. What if you're out in a snowstorm? Right. Up in northern Maine, you can get a foot of snow in 6 hours.
And if you're walking along, even if you're walking on the track that you pack down,
mm-hmm.
you slip a little bit off it, you punch through 6 feet, twist your ankle. That's not a good day.
Yeah, or overextend your knee or something.
Yeah.
I've done that.
Yeah, me too.
Or post hole.
Yeah.
That
sucks.
It does suck. Yeah, it took 3 months to get over that. But so anyway, yeah, so back to how much skill do you need? As much as you can possibly learn.
Yeah.
Never underestimate what can happen out there.
Agreed, wholeheartedly.
Yep.
Well, I think we've been going for quite a while here.
Oh, what? Usually takes me that long to stop talking. We're not even halfway through the list.
Yeah.
What else do we want to delve into here?
I don't know.
Myths?
Yeah, let's just do the quick myth thing.
Was there something else before that?
There was a whole bunch of stuff, but I think we've had a pretty good discussion about other things that are interesting.
Sure.
But just, winter myths. And before we hit the record button, you and I were discussing the what I believe to be an old wives' tale about hot water freezes faster than cold water.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And you made a very good explanation of the science of why that is, but I still have trouble wrapping my head around it.
In a nut, when water boils or heats up, it breaks down the molecular structure, and it freezes. It just freezes quicker. It solidifies quicker. In another example, like we talked about if you make ice, if you boil water and then freeze it, it dries crystal clear, and it makes for really nice looking ice for cocktails and stuff. But if you just freeze ice out of the tap, it's white. It has air in it. So heating up water, it's breaking down the molecular structure. And I'm not obviously a scientist for physics or anything, but
I'm no Scientologist.
But I know. And I'll tell you, from doing thawing pipes for 33 years under people's houses, hot water always freezes first. And it's that simple. So it's not a myth. It is true.
Right. Thank you for educating me, because I've always thought of it from the perspective of it would take that much longer to cool. Yeah. So
I don't think I educated you. I may have pointed you in the right direction, and that's all I can do.
Educate. You got me some education.
Education. Yep. So what's another myth?
Another myth, and this is definitely a myth, that if you start to get loose feeling in your fingers, like basic frost nip, take off your mitts and rub snow on it. That's a really bad idea.
Oh yeah, no, you don't want to do that. And the same token, you don't want to run them under hot water either.
Yeah.
Yeah, but of course, if you have hot water, you're probably not freezing your fingers off.
Well, you could, because that hot water is going to freeze faster than any other water.
Yes. See? This all ties together. You're absolutely right.
It's a circle of life. It's
all right, that's a good question. So what do you do? And you've been out for whatever, and all of a sudden you realize it's like you take your gloves off and you've got white fingertips. You know what that means?
Yeah.
What does it mean? I don't know.
You're the white collar woodsman.
Yeah, white collar woodsman. But so now you got some frostbite setting.
Yeah, or frost nip anyway.
Frost nip.
Yeah.
But it's the start of a really serious problem.
So on trips, I see it a lot, and especially if you're walking into a headwind. Yeah, the face, areas that aren't covered, which is basically just your face. And then on really bad trips, we had one a few years ago. We still call it the Squaw Pan Death March. And I got together with a good friend of mine, Adam Logie, the other day, and he and I had to walk like 6 miles into this 40-mile-an-hour wind. It was 20 below. We had zero exposed flesh. We had cut face masks out of a foam pad, and literally any exposed flesh would have frozen in 3 seconds.
Bad.
It was bad. So every 2 or 3 minutes we'd stop, face away from the wind. I'd check his face, he would check mine. So yeah, if you start to develop little cold spots, and it looks white and it doesn't move like when your face moves. It's basically the liquid in your skin freezing and crystallizing. So you'd want to get it when it's in that really beginning stage. So what I would do, what we did, take off a mitt, get a nice warm hand on that piece of flesh.
Slowly bring it back up to temperature.
Yeah. But if it's your fingers, and you're wearing mitts, that's a bigger problem, because you're not insulating yourself adequately. So you have to.
Because your core's that's the first. Your toes and fingers freeze first anyway.
Yeah,
because it's furthest from the core.
Yeah, so if you think of your body, your body knows to try to maintain your internal organs in your brain, and it will sacrifice your extremities to do so. Mm-hmm. So what do you do in that situation? Well, you either get out of the wind, get out of the cold, and build a fire, warm up, or, get out of the cold and exercise like hell. And hopefully if you're out of the wind, then your insulative layers are enough to keep in the heat to...
Try to get your hands under your armpits or something?
Start warming you up. Pull your hands in. If you're wearing gloves, take off the gloves, put on mitts so your fingers... your hands stay warmer in mittens than they do in gloves, because all the fingers help keep each other warm.
Yeah, and the other thing about being out in the cold, a lot of people, and I'm probably guilty of this too, but... a lot of people don't drink enough water when it's cold.
Very true.
That will get you in serious trouble, because it's physically hard to drink cold water when you're cold.
Right.
You don't want to do it. But that causes problems.
Yeah, huge problems. As you get more dehydrated, your blood gets thicker.
Exactly.
It's less efficient at getting the heat from your core out to your extremities, so you start to get cold that way. And there are other medical things. There's something called cold diuresis, that as you get colder, your body will shunt circulation to your extremities, and that increases the blood pressure in your core, and you pee more as a result. So one of the old things is, drink so that you pee a quart of water a day. But that would be like a counter indicator of that.
Which leads us to another myth, is that if you don't have any water, you can just eat snow and let it melt in your mouth.
You can do that.
Well, I was told you can't. So is that a myth? That you can't eat snow?
I would say that's a myth.
Because people say that if you put snow in your mouth and let it melt, that you're, what was the chemical? It did something. But it dehydrates you. It makes you more thirsty.
I don't know. When I was...
Because I've done it. I've eaten a lot of fresh powdered snow, and I never had an issue.
Me neither. So I was on that TV show a few years ago where they dropped me off in Norway on top of a mountain.
You're on a TV show?
Yeah, exactly, right? But I didn't have any water. There's no liquid water. And if I didn't hydrate somehow, so I was walking across this basically snowpack for 2 days, and you make little snowballs and you eat them.
Yeah. And I've seen a lot of times if you've got a water bottle, like an Nalgene with a big wide mouth, if you're down to like half a jug, half a bottle, throw a little snow in there and let it melt in the water.
Yeah.
Don't turn it to slush.
And then you put that
back inside and keep it warm.
Yeah.
And
put it under your jacket or something.
And a lot of technical jackets now, or a lot of jackets have big inside pockets. So carry your water where it's not going to freeze.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. You have a good insulated water bottle. There's several methods of doing it, but if you think that, well, geez, I've only got like half a liter of water and I could probably drink a liter and a half, just start adding a little bit of snow and let it melt.
Yeah.
And keep it, it'll buy you a little bit.
What they used to say in the old survival books was that it'll cool you to a certain extent. So if you're cold and shivering, don't eat snow because it's going to make that condition worse. But like in my example, if we're out on an expedition, we're hauling toboggans, like you get hot.
Oh man.
So if you're overheating as it is, that's a good way to stay cool. Just every 20 steps, a little handful of snow in the mouth. And then you don't have to rely on drinking and trying to maintaining liquid water in bitter cold conditions without insulated water bottles and such. It's not easy.
No, it's almost impossible.
Yeah, it's a big pain in the neck.
Yeah. And again, we learned that like when we were winter camping, although we did a lot of mountaineering, you're carrying a 60-pound pack, which is basically 4 days worth of food and like a couple liters of water. But you use that for dinner. So, with however you cook your meals or whatever. But so you basically have to be able to melt snow with a rocket stove, which kind of, for short money, you can get one of those little like MSR whisper jets, not whisper jets,
whisper
rocket,
light,
whatever they are. They fit in the palm of your hand,
right? And
they screw on top. As an emergency, and it doesn't take much to carry one of those around. And a little pan made of unobtainium or some really expensive thing.
It's got to be some rare earth metal.
But what would it take? What would it take though? Just to screw that thing on the top of a can of isopropane. I'm not an advocate for using that stuff, but in an emergency, it's better than the alternative. So if you got a pan and a little stove that weighs, the combination of it weighs a few ounces. It's a good way to make water.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, here we go. We're going. How many people are going to go out for a 4-hour snowshoe hike?
A 3-hour tour.
Yeah, and take a stove with them.
I saw a documentary about a 3-hour tour out, I think Hawaii, that went bad.
Documentary.
And they got stuck on an island.
Yeah, Gilligan's.
Yeah.
Something I can't remember. I watched. I remember watching that when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But a lot can happen in 3 hours.
Yeah.
As Gilligan found out.
Yeah.
You can get stranded on an island with a couple of hot chicks.
Yep.
But that's not the case with... It wouldn't happen to me. But anyway, I guess it all comes back down to just being prepared. So was there another myth that you were...
Not really.
You're usually full of them. You usually got like a laundry list. I can never out-myth you.
Yeah. No.
So that in itself is a myth.
Just the eating snow is a myth. Don't eat snow. Do eat snow, but not if you're really cold. We've determined that hot water does freeze faster than cold water.
It will freeze quicker.
But it is definitely a myth to rub snow onto frost nip or frostbite. That's a horrible idea.
And I've heard that a lot too. I've heard people say that.
I've seen it. I have old books upstairs in the bookshelf, and they're like, "Yeah, if you get into trouble, rub snow on it." And there had to be. I always like to think that there was probably a good reason why they used to explain it that way, that we just don't have all the information that they had.
To satisfy your curiosity, walk outside and wash your hands in the snow and wait about 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And see and then wash them again in snow. And at that point, you probably couldn't do it a third time because you got to put your hands in your pockets.
Right.
What's the instinctual thing? Okay, and I've done this working in people's houses, like I got to wash my hands, so I wash my hands in the snowbank. Now it's like, geez, my hands are freezing. I immediately put them in my pockets. So if you get frosty fingers, get them in your pockets or get them under your armpits or something. Get them as close to your core as you can.
Somebody was telling me, it was a couple years ago in northern Maine, they said it was so cold that the politicians had their hands in their own pockets.
Wow. Wow. I remember a day, I was up in northern Maine, and when someone talked, you had to take, their breath froze, you had to take it inside to hear what they were saying.
That's not a myth?
No. That's cold, man. The fog.
Yeah. The coldest I've ever seen,
what is the cold?
60 below in the Yukon.
Okay, I was going to say, because that wasn't Wolfboro.
No, but you'd spit and it would hit the ground as ice. I never did the thing. You can see him on YouTube where the guy's like a pan of hot water and you chuck it up in the air. And yeah, I didn't do that.
40 below is the coldest I've ever seen. I saw it 2 days in a row. And then actually we hit 38 below back, was it 1989 or 35 below? It was almost 40 below because I remember working in propane. In the propane industry, it was so cold we actually took liquid propane and poured it into a coffee cup and set it on the back of the truck, and it sat there like a glass of water.
Wow.
That's how cold it was.
That's pretty
cold.
So
it was pretty close to 44 below. Yeah. That's just cold, fortunately around here those temperatures don't last long.
And they seem to be fewer and farther between, like the...
Yeah, I mean now it's like, 20 below is cold. And, it's not, whether it's 5 degrees or 20 below, I mean, it's cold.
Yeah.
I mean, it's dangerous. I mean, when you get down in the single numbers, it's dangerously cold.
For me, 20 below is that changeover point where things just weird stuff starts happening, right? Like stuff just starts breaking.
And trees snap without the wind blowing.
Like last year, we had an ice storm, and then it was really cold, and I went to open the door on the truck to get my daughter in, and the handle just comes off in my hand. And, stuff like that. It's just that weird...
Because it's stressing. That's when your snowshoe binding is going to break.
Right, if they're plastic
snowshoes. That's a good example.
Or any of the sort of high tech gear in those bitter cold conditions. Yep. If the material gets brittle in the cold, that's when everything's going to start falling apart.
Because it's bringing it close to an extreme.
Yeah, and that's kind of the type of expeditioning we do with traditional gear. Mm-hmm. Let's minimize the number of moving pieces and moving parts. Yeah.
Well, that's a good example. Like if a pair of those high technical snowshoes probably wouldn't work. There's a good chance they wouldn't work on one of your expeditions.
We've had people bring them. I mean, they work, but it's just...
What do you do if something happens?
There are a lot of negatives to it. Well, one of the things we do on the expedition is everybody has to build a pair of primitive improvised snowshoes and spend 24 hours on them. So with the idea being that, lots of people have seen pictures of these things, but, sort of like if you build a shelter, you don't know anything about it until you sleep in it. You don't know anything about making primitive snowshoes until you go walk on them for a day, and you don't... Yeah. I mean, if you build them and then walk 20 feet, say, they work. Like, you still know nothing about them.
Yeah, I mean, I think my first pair, they were almost 20 inches wide, each one of them. How do you think those worked?
Yeah, great, I bet.
I didn't sink, but I couldn't walk. And that's when I learned, it's like, these things need to be longer and narrower.
Right.
And that's how I kind of fell in love with the old pickle design.
Yep.
They're probably my favorite. And the snowcrafts that I have are pretty much, they got a really high nose. Uh-huh. Just a great old pair of snowshoes. I just wish we had the conditions.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll get
maybe.
I'm looking forward to 3.5 weeks, or actually 4.5 weeks on the snowshoe trail this winter, and I'm really hoping we get some nice, consistent cold weather. Because life in the winter, the worst thing, we talk about it's cold, it's dangerous if it's cold, but it's so pleasant when it's consistently cold that the worst thing is the big thaw where it'll warm up and rain. Like, that's awful in the winter.
Yeah, that makes for miserable conditions.
Because then you're not mobile anymore. It's awful.
No, and that's what they're talking about this year. Is they're talking above. Depends who you talk to, but the gist is it's going to be above average temperatures, but above average precipitation. So it's going to do like hover around freezing and like rain every day. That'll make for real
awful.
It'll make for a luge.
It's like the weather is like schizophrenic, right? Yeah. And then the front will come through, and then it'll be 60 mile an hour winds and 30 below for 25 hours, and then it'll be 45 and rain, and so I don't know. I like the consistent cold. That's ideal for me in the winter, but we never seem to get it for very long anymore.
No, it's not in New England, or I don't know. It's what part of the world does have stable conditions anymore?
Yeah, exactly.
Realistically,
the Arctic is going crazy.
Yeah.
They had to move the Iditarod in Alaska last year. They didn't have any snow in south central Alaska. They had to move the course up.
Can you imagine?
We had a student, a young woman, great young lady who's going to be with us on our Cree trip, but she lives in Homer, Alaska. Yep. And we were talking all about just the crazy weather they've been having the last few years. No snow in Alaska.
Yeah, I've got some friends on Instagram that are a couple of them from Alaska, and they keep me updated with. They get some pretty crazy weather patterns going.
Yeah,
which is affecting the fisheries. It affects everything.
Right.
You know, it's. Yeah, I don't know. I think we've crossed the threshold. They're trying to get things back to what it used to be.
It'll be an interesting few years.
But we're basing it on what, the last 100 years. I mean, what's that? That's a drop in the bucket. Maybe it's not that unordinary.
Yeah, who knows?
We'll never know.
Written history goes back, what, like 3,500 years or so? And in most parts of the world, I mean, you can find some places where it's longer. Anatomically, modern humans have been around, the current research I've read, 350,000 years. So our history, human history, written history, is 1% of the human experience on the planet. So we don't know what happened before. I mean, they can. The smart guys that go drill cores in Greenland and stuff can get pretty good ideas as to what the climate was doing years ago.
You got to be pretty smart to drill in Greenland.
I think so. Yeah,
I couldn't just go there and start drilling.
I couldn't even find the place.
Well, it's green.
It's Greenland, not Greenland, New Hampshire.
Oh yeah, well, because I've been there.
I've been there too.
And I can't drill there. I've tried to drill holes there. No, they don't like that. But, well, how long did the Neanderthals stick around? They were here for.
They're saying up till the last ice age, I think.
They had a good run.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the thing is, getting off on another tangent. But
that's what we do.
That's what we do. But you think about most of the catastrophic change. It's really been since World War II.
Yeah.
I mean, after we start, when the agriculture faded off, or I say the agriculture, but like when the home farms started disappearing and people depended on frozen foods and cattle industry to keep them fed, and then transportation and since World War II, and that's only what, 50, 60, 70 years ago, 80 years ago, I don't know.
But less than 350,000. I'm not a math guy.
No,
but
it's been
300.
We've made quite an impact in the last, let's say, 50 years.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah. You talk to old timers, or you read the old books, and somebody would have a root cellar, and that was going to keep your game and your garden from last summer to next year.
I grew up with a root cellar,
but now it's people have this grocery stores. They say it's like 3 days of food. That's what's in the store shelves.
Yeah, but and again, that wouldn't even. For a given demographic.
Yeah.
Like let's say the IGA has 3 days worth of food for Wolfboro. Is that a safe comment? Probably. But then what?
I don't know. I guess we start making our own.
But the problem is what happens. That's under normal usage.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happens when everybody panics? They clean off the shelves.
Like every time there's a snowstorm.
Yeah.
And everybody who's not from here starts screaming nor'easter,
right,
and running out with milk.
Yeah, and realistically, in the event of a catastrophic emergency, the stores probably have 6 hours worth of food.
Right.
Because we panic. Same with gasoline. Every time it's like, oh my God, But but you say root cellar. I grew up with a root cellar.
Yeah.
And that's the way it was. You'd put all your vegetables, root vegetables, in the cellar, and then you'd spend you do a lot of canning and this and that. But you were more self-sufficient, and realistically, you didn't depend on much from the outside except for what electricity you needed and gasoline, whatever. But now. No one can. Yeah, it's just people can't do anything for themselves.
Yeah, we have a running joke about if their phone can't make it work, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's probably true.
I can't do it. My phone won't work.
I was just on the phone on the way over here talking to a customer who's unlocking their house from their phone, so I can go in and do some work.
Wow.
They didn't even have to come to New Hampshire. She just pulled out her phone and.
That's pretty cool, though.
Yeah.
I don't like it. Like
That's amazing.
I have a visceral dislike
amazing.
to it, but it is amazing.
It's amazing. Oh, you can't shun it. I mean, it's like it is amazing that we have that kind of technology.
Yeah.
But
well, we can put a man on the moon. We can unlock houses with phones. We still, as a culture, as a species, can't make trailer lights that will work 2 years in a row.
No.
Not even close.
Trailer lights. I don't know. Anyway, we're going down a tailspin.
It's getting dark.
It's getting dark.
Well, let's wrap it up then. Thank you, Ed, for joining us once again and enlightening our audience. We're always happy to have you, and I hope that hope things slow down a bit for you. So,
it's inevitable. So eventually, things will stop at some point, but I'm not ready for that yet.
Yeah. And for all of those of you out there in podcast land, thank you for listening to another episode. And if you enjoyed this and think it's useful, spread the word. Tell a friend. Leave us a review. Leave us a star rating on iTunes, something like that. It's always helpful for getting the word out. So thank you very much for listening, and have a great day. You have been listening to the Jack Mountain Bushcraft Podcast. For more information on our professional wilderness guide training programs that are college accredited and GI Bill approved, visit us on the web at jackmtn.com.